Welcome to Christian Warrior Training. My name is Keith. This is the weekly roundup of all crime that occurred at churches over the past week. If you want to see the written version of this and get this in your email inbox each week, head over to christianwarriortraining.com. You can sign up there. I don't spam you. I just send you church-related news, and I don't sell my email list. All right, we're going to start off with the church security threat level has been raised to orange, which means we're at high risk of attacks. Now, I really went in depth into why we elevated back up to orange for high risk of attacks. You can read that over at the main story. I've also done a YouTube video on it before. I don't want to dive back into it again, but it's because of all of the threats that the FBI is warning law enforcement about, that churches are at risk. But the FBI has yet to let the churches know. They've only let law enforcement know. And because of good cops that are watching this broadcast, you've sent me all the bulletins that the FBI has been sending to you so that I can get it out to you guys. Spread the word. Let them know we're at a high risk of attack. In fact, the FBI director said at one point that this was the highest level of threats he's ever seen in his career, worse than 9/11. Something's going to happen. We know it. We should be aware of it. All right, next up, we got a 15-year-old boy that was fatally shot in Sebring, Florida, and he was shot in the bathroom of a church. All right, so the dispute, which occurred on Friday evening, was reportedly related to drugs. Sebring Police Department responded to the incident around 6:40 p.m., and they arrested a 17-year-old boy believed to be the shooter. Now, the victim was urgently transported to St. Joseph's Hospital in Tampa, but he succumbed to his injuries. The 17-year-old has been charged with homicide and possession of a firearm as a minor. The police are actively investigating the case and have called on the public to assist by providing any further information. I did a video on this one also last week, right after it happened, describing what occurred and what you can do in your church. The biggest thing that you can do for your church is that if you have communities that are very violent around you and you're trying to bring those people to Christ, you just have to realize that they're not going to check some of their bad habits at the door. And you should take some of our training that is for free over at christianwarriortraining.com. Go hit the training tab. I have training on how to identify armed individuals, so you would be able to see it. I also have free training on conflict de-escalation, so that when people start arguing, you can deconflict that. Even if you have grown up in a bad neighborhood and you're used to dealing with these things, take the training, because you're going to learn something new and you can take it and hopefully keep your church safe. Next up is a series of armed robberies in Maine. Now, one of our followers here called me and let me know that it actually created a lot of mayhem in their area. Connor McGlone was 27. He is 27, from Auburn, was arrested following a series of alleged robberies at churches in southern Maine. Now, the incidents, which included threats and theft, began on Sunday morning in Parsonsfield. Now, this got totally out of control, so bear with me here. McGlone allegedly threatened a woman in a church parking lot. He then reportedly committed additional robberies in Cornish and Baldwin. Now, a robbery is taking property by using force or fear. Now, he ended up pulling a gun on a man and then stole from an offering plate. The situation escalated into a high-speed chase involving multiple law enforcement agencies, during which McGlone was seen waving a firearm and swerving at other vehicles while evading the police. The pursuit ended when State Police Sergeant Daniel Hansen forced McGlone's vehicle off the road. Good job, Sarge. McGlone, who had outstanding warrants, was arrested and taken to Bridgeton Hospital for evaluation before being moved to York County Jail. He faces multiple charges, with further charges expected. Now, I've let you guys know all the time, all problems start in the parking lot. You would be able to see this guy coming, and you would know, like, just this stuff. I've seen it before during my career. I've seen it. You can see it coming. Start gathering up your people and get ready to address the threat as it comes into your church parking lot. Just play this, take a copy of this, and make it a scenario in your next church training. All right, and we had a stabbing incident outside Saints Peter and Paul Church in San Francisco. It is a beautiful church, and I'm going to leave the picture right here because I want you to see kind of the map and the outlying area. It's actually in a very nice part of San Francisco. I know people see the news and think San Francisco is a horrible place, but there are some beautiful parts in San Francisco, and this is one of them. Now, one of my friends, who you guys know that I was a cop in this general area. One of my friends happens to go to this church, and he sent me an email letting me know that basically the homeless have taken over even this nice area. You can see on the side view over here, you can kind of see the outline of what it looks like. Nice park right there. got the ocean behind you or the bay behind you. It's just a beautiful place. I've been to this church. It's very nice. This is the second stabbing that we've seen at this church occur. This happened back on April 21st. And it was where a parishioner was stabbed in the leg following an altercation. Now, the incident occurred during Mass celebrated by Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone, which was disrupted by a homeless man who later became involved in a scuffle outside the church. The suspect was identified as 25-year-old Marco, I can't even say his last name, is Celiac. He was charged with attempted murder and multiple counts of assault with a deadly weapon. There were no major life-threatening injuries. The victim was quickly released from the hospital. It is easy for you to say it's San Francisco. However, if you work with the homeless population, you're dealing with drug addiction and mental health issues like I've never seen ever anywhere. And you are susceptible to these same types of incidents. You absolutely need to pay attention to pre-attack indicators and pay attention. Go back. I just wrote an article on situational awareness. I am going to work on a video for you guys on pre-attack indicators. These are the things that people do before they attack you. It's important for you to look at those because you can also look at pre-attack indicators where they're going to attack somebody else as well. Now, you have to remember with these populations that traditional de-escalation may not work due to their issues, either drug influence or mental illness. And you also have to remember it takes two to de-escalate. So if the other person doesn't want to take it down a notch, then you're going to need to disengage and call the police. And sometimes the police might not come. I was thinking about doing another video today. There's a funeral for a police officer in my area. He was shot and killed last week. And just yesterday, we had 8 police officers shot in one incident with 4 killed. More and more law enforcement is leaving. It is more violent for them every day. You have to be ready to take care of these incidents by yourself. Now, this guy here in San Francisco, the DA is getting better, but the jury pool in San Francisco is pretty liberal. I'm not thinking this guy's going to actually get convicted of attempted murder. I think he's going to end up pleading, and then he'll get like a year in jail or something and be right back out. All right, now off to a robbery at True Vine Missionary Baptist Church in Mobile, Alabama. Now, this occurred on Thursday, April 25th. A church lawn worker was assaulted and robbed by 2 individuals, resulting in the victim sustaining serious injuries. The attack, described by witnesses, is particularly violent, involved the worker being punched, reportedly, and left with facial injuries. Now, the assailants managed to steal $100. Good pinch, guys. Before fleeing the scene. Now, Pastor Sandy McQueen expressed deep concern over the violence and mentioned plans to enhance security measures at the church. Mobile police are currently investigating. They have surveillance footage, and they're trying to figure out who these guys are. It's important to train your church employees about situational awareness. I've got an article on it. You can go take a look at it. I might do a training video on it as well. Give it to your employees. Let them know about our alert level and help them pay attention to their surroundings. Now, many times you're going to see danger coming and you can avoid it by just leaving the area. Now, that alert level is super important. I was just doing scenario training for a church this last Saturday, and in it, I gave a very gray scenario that was tough for them. And it was kind of a shoot, no shoot. What are you going to do in an incident in a parking lot? And as they unfolded why they thought they should shoot or why they shouldn't shoot, one of the things I brought up was I put out the church security threat level and I list out everything going on so that you can be aware and then you can make your own decision. Now, it doesn't mean you can go out and I don't want you going out and shooting anybody. To be honest, I want you to call the police and let them deal with it, but you might find yourself in a bad situation. Look at that church security threat level and see if it applies to your church, and then decide if you're going to apply it to your church, and then look at those things and have that as your overall indicator of there are things I need to be worried about. So situational awareness for all your employees, even the landscapers and all your volunteers, and let them know what the threats landscape looks like for your church so they can be more aware. You're not going to be panicked. You're not going to shut your church down, but you certainly are going to keep your head on a swivel, invite everybody in, let them pray to God, let them worship, but also have a plan in case somebody decides to do something bad to your people. Now, we got an arson incident in Gloucester County. A 44-year-old man was charged with arson following a church fire that resulted in injuries to a firefighter. The incident, which has led to further charges beyond arson, occurred on the evening of April 20th. I really don't have much more information than that, but there is an arson every single week that we put in here. So just a heads up, No, that's an issue. Make sure you have a fire alarm in your church. Make sure you have a burglar alarm and a 4K video system so we can capture the individuals who might be out to harm your church. All right, now on to sexual assaults. There are always a ton of sexual assaults in our church because predators choose to work at the church knowing that they can take advantage of our good nature and also take advantage of our forgiveness and hoping that we would bury it. Now, sexual abuse allegations are intensifying against a Gainesville church leader. This is in Gainesville, Florida. Another former member of Christian Coalition Family Church has come forward with allegations of sexual assault against the church's founder, Lorenzo Lee Crawford, who refers to himself as the Apostle. Crawford, 55, has been in custody since May 23 of 2023. Following a SWAT raid at the church's location. Can you imagine having SWAT raid your church? He faces multiple, and that's not a ding on the police, that's a ding on the church. He faces multiple charges, including 11 counts of sexual battery and an additional count of felony battery. The recent complaint details Crawford's alleged manipulation tactics, such as instilling fear of divine punishment and using sleep deprivation to control the victim, who had been a member for about a decade. The victim, who sought marriage counseling from Crawford, was told that sexual relations with him could heal her from past trauma and help her marital relationship. Okay, that's a sign that your pastor is not following the Bible. I actually have a lot of training over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. If you look at the newsletter, I've put out articles about what you can do to spot sexual predators in your church, how you can weed them out. The biggest thing is not just background checks, because a lot of people can pass the background checks. A lot of people won't be on the Megan's Law website or the sex predator website. When it comes down to is church security team members actually watching people and how they interact with others to look for those signs. I have all those signs over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. Just go to the search bar. You can look for it. You'll find the article. Actually, I've written a couple articles on it, and it should be able to help you out to weed these people out of your church. On to Louisiana, where state police seized clergy sex abuse records from the Archdiocese of New Orleans. Now, on the 25th of April, Louisiana State Police executed a search warrant at the headquarters of the Archdiocese of New Orleans to obtain all records related to a decades-long clergy sex abuse case. This unprecedented move is part of an ongoing criminal investigation involving former priest Lawrence Hecker, who's charged with kidnapping and rape. The search conducted by the Special Victims Unit aims to uncover extensive documentation going beyond Hecker to potentially include every priest and deacon accused of abuse in the Archdiocese. The Archdiocese has stated its cooperation with the investigation despite potential complications from a 2020 bankruptcy filing that protected certain documents. It certainly won't protect the stuff in a search warrant. We still have more sexual assault issues coming up and more stories here. It's just important to know that if the police serve a search warrant on your church, it is certainly uncomfortable for them, and I know it's uncomfortable for you. Just cooperate, find the documents they're looking for, and everything will go just fine. I have an article coming out tomorrow over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com where I talk about how to deal with the media in an incident like this. If you don't release a media statement and talk to the press, then you're letting somebody else drive the narrative. So if you have a sex abuse scandal at your church, you have a lot of work to do. And part of that hard work is talking to the media. And I've got a whole guide that comes out tomorrow. I might make it into a class just so that way it makes it a little bit easier for you if unfortunately ever have something like this come up at your church. Now, we have a fourth arrest in a child sex abuse case linked to Salisbury Church. A fourth person, Frederick Lewis Montgomery, who's 51 years old, has been indicted on multiple charges relating to a child sex abuse case associated with New Dimensions Ministries in Salisbury, Maryland. The allegations, covering events from 1986 to 1994, include child abuse, sex offenses, and assault. Montgomery, who was arrested on the 23rd of this year, is reportedly connected to the ongoing investigation into members of New Dimensions, where two other suspects face over 20 charges, and another, Alonzo Leon Parker Jr., is accused of 100 offenses. The case, which is seen as potentially institutional in its nature, involves suspects who had regular access to minors through their roles within the church. I love that the victims are getting their justice. It may be delayed, but at least people are going out, at least law enforcement is going out there and rounding them all up. I think this is wonderful. Now on to Cumberland County. Former Harrisburg church leaders charged with child crimes at a McDonald's. I have to be careful what I say here. So Roy Andrews, a 76-year-old former church youth leader from Mechanicsburg, has been charged with multiple counts of child victim crimes following an incident at a McDonald's in Cumberland County. On April 7th, witnesses at the restaurant observed Andrews engaging in inappropriate behavior with a 9-year-old girl, prompting them to alert management, who called the police. Andrews, who had led the youth group at the now closed Iglesia La Fuente in Harrisburg, reportedly took the children to church, provided meals, and had them at his home on the day of the incident. Despite denying the accusation, surveillance footage confirmed the inappropriate actions, which led to his arrest. Andrews is currently held on $60,000 bail with a preliminary hearing set for May 2nd. Police are investigating the possibility of other victims and urge anyone with information to come forward. Now on to some property crime before we move on. I'm going to just go through these fairly quickly. The House of Prayer churches in Hinesville is reportedly obstructing a federal investigation into allegations of defrauding veterans, and that's according to recent court documents. This was initiated by an FBI raid in June of 2022. It involves accusations that the church seminary submitted fraudulent claims to the VA for veterans' education and housing benefits. We got a vehicle theft at Whole Man Ministries in Winston-Salem. This occurred when a car was stolen in broad daylight from the parking lot of the ministry. The theft was captured on security cameras and happened swiftly as a man with a record towed away a white 2015 Chevrolet Equinox in 45 seconds. Now, look, just to be clear, when you're in church, they know you're going to be tied up for an hour, and that's when they're going to take advantage and steal your stuff. They're going to break into the car, or they're going to go ahead and steal the whole car. I encourage all of you to remember that everything has to start in the parking lot, meaning even if it's an active shooter, they've got to come in through the parking lot. Crime, all the criminals will start in the parking lot before they come into the church. I think it's super important for you to put people out there. If you have a choice of being between, if you're on security and you're inside or outside, I would always choose outside in the parking lot by the front door. I think that's the best place for you to be. There's a vandalism incident at North Shore Jewish Congregation in Mandeville, St. Tammany Parish, where somebody spray painted graffiti on the synagogue's exterior. It was not anti-Semitic, and the sheriff described the markings as nonsensical. It was probably a bunch of kids that were just being stupid. However, we're going to move on to Anne Arundel County, where they're currently investigating a hate crime at St. Albans Episcopal Church in Glen Burnie, following a vandalism there at around 6 p.m. on Sunday. The incident was captured on security footage and involved a teenage boy and a girl who damaged the church property by breaking a piece of concrete from a flower bed and vandalizing a memorial plaque. Now, look, since October 7th, these incidents are increasing. Fully expect that your church is going to get targeted as things progress in our country and in Israel over the next year. I highly encourage you to have a burglar alarm, a fire alarm, and a 4K video system to capture suspects and help the police. I cannot tell you how many times I would respond to a crime. Somebody would have phenomenal video, and I'd be able to look at it and say, I know that guy. I just talked to him yesterday. We're going to move on to some story updates. I want to talk about the arrest of 7 teenagers following a stabbing of Bishop Marmari in Australia. We know that last week, and I've done videos on this and I've put it out in the newsletter, Bishop Marmari being stabbed by an extremist last week. Well, now Australian police have arrested 7 teenagers aged 15 to 17 that were part of a network that they had plans to attack Jews and Christians throughout the Sydney area after the attack on Marmari was done. Now, interesting, I didn't know who Marmari was. I've never seen him, but boy, you guys let me know all about him. I've been watching him since then. Interesting. I'm glad you guys turned me on to him. You can expect more attacks like this in the United States. Many former terror investigators and experts expect a complex terror attack that can rival 9/11 in the U.S. in the very near future. Look, I know it's scary for me to go up each week and talk about all this news and put all this news out, and for you to be scared that your church is next. Look, the chance of anything happening at your church are negligible, but it's not zero. So look, keep your church open. Don't turn into a bunker. Let everybody come in and worship just to have a plan to deal with anything bad that happens. All right, we're going to move on to some international stories. Now, a priest and community members were targeted in a shooting in Brazil. This happened on April 21st, and it occurred at a private residence in Brazil where Father Jose Roberto Domingos and other guests were gathered. And the incident resulted in the priest being injured and two senior citizens killed. Father Domingos, who was shot in the hand, underwent medical treatment, including surgery to remove a bullet and shrapnel. The assailants, identified as Ines Gimelaki and her family, allegedly targeted the homeowner over a long-standing financial dispute. The attack also involved accusations of revenge by one of the assailants related to personal grievances against the homeowner. The local police have since apprehended the suspects, and Father Domingos is now recovering. Just another reminder for you to keep your head on a swivel and just have good situational awareness no matter where you are. Now on to Minya, Egypt, where Muslim extremists reportedly set fire to several homes of local Christians. This incident occurred in the late hours of a Tuesday, closely preceding the Coptic Orthodox Easter celebrations. According to a source with the Coptic Orthodox Church, the violence was sparked by Christian attempts to build a new church in Al Fawakir village, which was met with violent opposition from Muslim neighbors. The extremists allegedly attempted to force Christians out, ultimately resorting to arson while the residents were still inside their homes. Although the situation was contained by authorities who arrested the suspects, details remain sparse and no official statement has been closed yet. I have friends from back in California that are Coptic Christians that fled Egypt for this very reason. Listening to them tell their stories about the persecution that they endure over there is just unreal. And it's hard for Americans to conceptualize just the amount of persecution the Coptic Christians are under. That is a lot of news for this week. All right. I've already got news stories coming in for this week that I'll cover next week, and it will come out every Saturday over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. You can sign up for the email. You get it right in your inbox in your email early in the morning, so you can digest it and share it with your church security team on Sunday when you report for duty. Just know that each week I will always have violent crime, sexual assault, arson, and property crimes. That is a given. It happens every time. But comparatively to how much it happens at churches, it's minuscule to the number of churches in America that it happens to. And I think it's just remember not to be fearful and just know everything is written in the Bible about what's going to happen. So this shouldn't be a surprise. Let me know in the comments what you think. And if these newscasts help you, most importantly, remember the best way to protect yourself and your church is remember your ABCs. Always be caring,